If you're staring at thousands of delivery records and thinking, how the hell am I going to turn this into a carbon impact report for my managing director or CEO? Well, this is the video for you. Most people think you need complex software to figure this out, but what if I told you we can do this in 4 straightforward steps? And in the next 8 minutes, I'm going to show you the exact steps that we use at the Carbon Stamp to do this for our clients. Hello, my name is Fraser. I'm the CEO and founder of the Carbon Stamp, where we help businesses calculate and reduce their carbon footprints. And here's a couple of the clients that we've worked for in the past. So today we're going to go over probably the biggest headache in the Scope 3 world for a lot of our clients, and that is how to calculate your inbound and outbound deliveries. But before we get into that, we'll just go through the fundamentals of what a carbon footprint is and how it's calculated and where this sits into the Scope 3 world. So what is carbon footprint? The total sum of your greenhouse gas emissions, directly and indirectly caused by your company's activities. And how do we calculate this? Well, we adhere to the GHG Protocol corporate standard, which outlines 3 operational boundaries, which are Scope 1, 2, and 3. And then your inbound and your outbound deliveries fall under your Scope 3 categories. So we've covered what Scope 3 emissions are and where inbound and outbound sit into this, but actually again, let's go into a bit more detail. What does this really mean? So inbound deliveries under the GHG protocol is goods shipped in from your tier 1 suppliers into your warehouse, or for example, pharmaceutical companies may be holding their goods at licensed warehouses. So things like that. So the tier 1 supplier, let's just call them that, supplier A, shipped in through sea, air, or road. The emissions falling under these modes of transport would be category 4 and upstream transportation and distribution. Then once they're in your warehouse and sold to an immediate customer, they are then shipped again through sea, air, and land, and this is your category 9 downstream, your outbound deliveries, and that's how they segment the Scope 3 categories. So that's your inbound and outbound figured out. How is this actually calculated? Well, there is a lovely flowchart that we've created taken from the GHG Protocol Scope 3 technical guidance and method choice. So how is this calculated? And these are the questions that you need to ask yourself and check with your team, your supply chain team, if you have this sort of data. And if you outsource to third-party transportation, the likelihood of you having the fuel-based method is highly unlikely. But we'll just quickly ask it. So do you know how much fuel was used during transport? If the answer is yes, you then need to ask yourself another question. Do you know how much of each product was shipped on each vehicle? If the answer is yes, use the fuel-based. That is the best way that we can calculate emissions, because you know the exact amount of petrol or diesel used in those shipments. However, if you do not know these, you will need to ask yourself this question. Do you know the weight, distance, and transport mode of each shipment? If the answer is yes, which it most likely will be, you will use the distance-based method. However, if this is no, you will use the spend-based method, which we try and deter from just due to the inaccuracies. And it doesn't fully represent the business. So today we're going to walk you through the distance-based method. So how does this work? Firstly, you collect your activity data, and all you need for this is the distance traveled from supplier to reporting company, the weight of the goods in the shipment, and then the mode of transport, which can be assumed, but typically you will know this as a business because you'll know what's coming into your delivery depots. Then you need to choose your emission factors, which is extremely important because it varies greatly on the type and mode of transport used. Here's a worked example, for example, where the rigid lorries over 17 tons with 100% laden capacity, they've got an emission factor there of 0.12436. Whereas Arctic lorries that have the 100% laden capacity, they have an emission factor of 0.006021. And that is a 106% increase in the difference. So you need to make sure you're using and finding the correct vehicle type. Otherwise, you may be over-reporting or severely under-reporting the emissions for your reporting company. So once you've gathered all that data, you then apply the formula, which is simply the distance traveled in kilometers, the mass of goods purchased, which should be in tons, and then multiply by the emission factor the transport type or mode. And then the final step is that you repeat this for every single delivery in and out for your business, which could be over 300,000 rows. So this is where data management is really important. And again, you don't need to use software for this, and we'll show you through the exact steps that we use to do that. So here's a real life example with a couple of fake supplier addresses just to protect our customers. So firstly, like I said, collect activity data. So you need to find a supplier address, and this can be taken from delivery dockets or PO numbers. So for example, here we've just taken the largest warehouse in Europe. Then you need to calculate the distance between the supplier address, which is this, to your reporting company address or warehouse location. And then you need to find a shipment weight for that individual shipment. So for example, we've combined two products here of 2,955 kilos and 3,455 kilos, which were all bundled into the same shipment from Finland. Then you choose the emission factors. So we knew that this vehicle was traveling on land and arrive in our depot via an Arctic lorry all the way from Finland. There'd been no changes, there'd been no sea, it all come through road. So the year for this, taken from the DEFRA, conversion factors were 0.07800. And we took the average Arctic, average laden, and also a ton by kilometre because we knew the weight of the shipment. Finally, we apply the formula here. It's exactly what we just showed you in the step before, which is distance travelled multiplied the mass of goods multiplied by the emission factor. And here we've got the total distance, which we've used from Google Maps, multiplied by the weight in tons, which is required by the formula, and then multiplied by the emission factor, which we've taken from DEFRA. And from there, for this shipment, we're able to calculate the carbon emissions. So we have 1.36 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Then what you need to do, repeat this step again for all your deliveries. Hopefully you're able to follow that along and kind of break down the complexities and make it a lot more straightforward and simple for you and your business when reporting carbon emissions under scope 3 for inbound and outbound deliveries. If you've got any questions at all, please don't hesitate to message me and we'll see what we can do to help. Thank you.